Hi guys, so I want to talk to you about multiculturalism, and first I want to give kind of a disclaimer on the fact that the things that I share in my videos and this video are my personal experiences and background, and that your personal experiences and background may immensely differ. And so I, because of one of the attributes of being multicultural, I am really aware of the fact that pretty much anything that I can say about a culture or about how I feel in a culture or about my vision of a culture in comparison to another culture that I am also a member of can be seen as offensive. And the way that my mind works, I um, know how to adapt, and I know these kind of differing truths and differing views of seeing the world, and I kind of get caught in between it. And so sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't say things because I don't want to offend people, because I know that they will be offended, but that keeps me from expressing who I am and what I'm feeling. And so I really just am asking you all for grace in what you hear, and know that I'm not saying it coming from where you're coming from, most likely. So please don't judge me, or please try not to. And if I do say something that's offensive to you, please know that that isn't my intention to offend, and that my intention is really for us to learn to understand each other more and to communicate with each other more so that we can love each other and live harmoniously. So I just want to say that. And also along with that kind of cultural thing, there's also the reality that I believe that the things that you say and think on really plant seeds in your heart and shape the way that you act and the way that you think and the way that you feel. And so I don't like to dwell on negative feelings I don't like to reflect on negative feelings instead of reflecting on really positive feelings. So that also, in a good way, thinking about all the positive things can be really good. And so it kind of keeps me sometimes from talking about certain things that I think are really good to talk about too. So it's just this balance that I'm trying to find between the utmost truth, which is love, and understanding what does love mean. Does love mean I'm always making the person on the receiving end of my interaction feel all warm inside, or does it mean speaking truth? And I think, for one thing, it really depends on the situation and on the interaction and on kind of like the atmosphere that comes from a lot of different factors, including like where you both are, where your interaction is at, and just like the context and everything. So that's just a 4-minute disclosure for you. Um, I want to talk about, number one, how someone can kind of become multicultural. Like, how does that happen? Like, I don't think that maybe necessarily people actually really understand it. Like, it's something that we talk about, like how we're starting to have grad programs that focus on cross-cultural communication, um, not really taking into account the fact that there's literally people that actually like are that. Like, they don't need to learn how to communicate cross-culturally because that's literally the way that they are wired, and it's really awesome, and it's an awesome gift, and it's an amazing gift, and I'm super grateful for having it. But it can also be really difficult. So because the world is becoming more and more globalized, that means that there's more and more opportunities for um, people to travel and to put themselves into different cultures, people to flee from a certain country that they grew up in and then embrace a different culture. And so that's technically being cross-cultural because cultural because um, you have a new culture of this place and your culture that you were born with. And then there's also the like little lovely beings that come from either like a mom being from one place and a dad being from one place, and then so they come make babies, and then the baby has the culture from the mom and the culture from the dad. And then there's also people who, I'm just going to give my story. um, so my parents are originally both from America, and they moved to France and then became nationalized French. So they are cross-cultural. Um, I um, was born having two cultures, belonging to two cultures. I grew up in that framework, and that really has a huge impact. And for people who like spend their formative years living within multiple cultures, that really changes the type of person that they are, or shapes the person that they are. Not even changes, shapes the person that they are. So this is my background. I um, lived in France, was born in France, and lived in France my whole life. And all my friends were French, and I went to French school, and la di da di da, I was French, um, till I went to America for college when I was 18. And at home, we spoke English, and that's how I sound like an American. And hmm, I guess the next thing is to talk about, and I've kind of already blah about the like props and difficulties that being multicultural can present, and one of them is the fact that because you belong to two different cultures at the same time, um, you can be ostracized all the time, no matter what culture you're in, because you are fully French and fully American, and yet French people are not like you, and American people are not like you. So pretty much, when I'm in France, I'm not French, and when I'm in America, I'm not American. So pretty much, you feel different from everyone, everywhere, all the time. And um, honestly, that's maybe one of the coolest things ever because I have really understood that in reality, I think one of the biggest lies is that we are the same. And because the reality is that each and every person is extremely unique and beautiful. And, there are similarities overarching in types of people and in the environment that they're in and in their history that they've shared that and the way that they act that brings them together. But sometimes because like the things that seem the most similar are the things that are displayed the most, that's like why how people end up interacting, and then they don't get to actually show who they are truly inside. And so I'm really grateful that I I can see that. I can see who, or I know that there's something more than just what's being portrayed, and it's really cool. Um, Another difficulty is that because I sound like this, people don't understand you're different. Like when I went to California, people just thought that I was American, and so it can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. And the reality is that some things that are offensive in American culture are not offensive in French culture, and some things that are offensive in French culture are not offensive in American culture. And one of those main things is um, confrontation. Like in America, like people feel extremely uncomfortable about saying something to your face, like yeah, how they feel about you, that like you offended them. And in France, if you were to talk to someone else about how you feel about them, that's like the worst insult that you could ever do. So, truth. And I've grown from understanding what I understand truth to be. But coming from France, I thought it was one thing, and I kind of realized it's not that, and it's not really what Americans think it is either. And now I just, ta-da! Let's move on to another difficulty in being multicultural, because you see a lot of different things. Sometimes you can start talking about stuff and it comes off as um, you think you're better than everyone. And I really don't. um, but it's really difficult because that's something that people have said to me a lot, that it just sounds like I think that I'm better than them. And I really don't. So, yeah. 11 minutes. Um, so another thing is, again, the conflicting ways of thinking and being can kind of make it difficult. Like, for instance, saying hello. In America, and I mean in California, I always thought living in France that all Americans hug, and that's just how you say hello, you know. And that's not true. In France, when you say hello, if you're being polite, you do the bis, and it's like really awesome because it's actually like an acknowledgement of the person's presence, and that's something that not all Americans are good at, acknowledging the existence of someone. And I'm not saying French are either. I'm just saying that like you can literally choose whether or not you're gonna shun someone or not, and you are making the active decision in doing that. Whereas in America, it's kind of like sometimes there's just someone there that you don't necessarily know, and you don't really say hello to them, and it's kind of offensive. The thing is, I come back to France after living in America for 4 years, and I kind of forget the importance of doing la bise, and that it can be mean and rude if you don't. Because I'm just used to being like, "What's up, dude?" And I'm chill with that, you know? Or like hugging people. I love hugging people, but it's not necessarily like the thing to do. So you kind of get to this point where you've traveled so much and you've gone back and forth with culture so much that um you don't, like, you know that truth and way of being is relative. Like, I'm not saying that like all truth is relative. It's just like the way that you see right. I feel like I'm digging myself into people that are gonna rip me apart right now. But for me, the utmost truth is love. And you, when you've gone from culture to culture, where this is like the way that you interact with people is this way, and this is the way that you communicate love and acceptance and stuff, and another culture you do it this way, that you like the importance of those things kind of just all come off, because what matters to me is where my heart is and what I'm communicating, because I think that all humans can really understand that, except for different people um, understand that in different ways. So it can be difficult. I'm going to end this video here because it's super long, and if you watched to the end, then props, and I'm going to be doing more videos on cross-culturalism and what it's like being a cross-cultural person and traveling and la 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 la, and I love you all.